All right, Greg, you're headed up to Baltimore Saturday night. Ravens, Chiefs, the soon-to-be MVP. I feel very comfortable continuing to say that. Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, Patrick Mahomes. Big game in Baltimore. I love the fact, I've said this already this week too, first AFC Championship game in Baltimore since 1971. I'm pumped for the fans there. They get to have the game back in Baltimore. I'm curious from your perspective covering this game. Kansas City, obviously, their offense got back on the right track for the first time in really what feels like all season against Buffalo last week. They got Travis Kelce involved. They scored 27 points. At the risk of sounding like a hater, are we sure the Chiefs are back? Or do we think maybe it was a byproduct of Buffalo being so banged up on defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had probably the more difficult win to get in compared to the Texans. I think the Texans were certainly capable of beating the Ravens, but Baltimore had a fairly convincing win, and Buffalo, got in, but it wasn't easy by any means. Not Buffalo, Kansas City got in. Injuries on defense are something that I think limited Buffalo the whole year. I still thought it was a game they could win, and an impressive win for Kansas City to pull it out. Are they back? I'm not ready to say that yet. But I mean, this is a game where you think about the two offenses going head to head. They need to have the right game. They need to have, it's probably going to be a 31, 34 point minimum to win this game on Sunday.
Like I said, it was a game. Look, you do it, you get credit for it, regardless of the circumstances. But Travis Kelce, his best game in a while, 5 for 75 and 2 touchdowns. I do think the Ravens are incredibly equipped to deal with him between all of their different safeties. They got about 5 of them that can do the job really well. They've obviously got arguably the best linebacker duo in the NFL, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. Do you think that's where this starts? Is that going to be the focal point for this Ravens defense, is taking that safety blanket away and putting it back on these young Chiefs receivers?
Totally. I think so. I mean, it's one of those where they won games where Kelce was barely contributing, so they can. But yeah, if you think about the big difference, I mean, these teams, last time these teams faced was 21. And the big difference is there is no Tyreek Hill. I mean, there is the drop off in who they have to go to and lean on in the postseason, besides Kelce, is a major drop off. And now it's funny. Now you look at Baltimore, and Baltimore has these veteran receivers and Zay Flowers. And if anything, things have kind of shifted from Lamar not having the weapons to now you wondering whether Patrick Mahomes has enough ammunition downfield. I think he's gotten by with it, but in a game like this, especially on the road, it's a big ask.
Which also leads to the question of it hasn't always been good, but the running game has come in clutch for the Chiefs at times this season. Isaiah Pacheco, obviously, he's going to get over 1,000 yards for the season in this game, if I had to guess. Is that the answer? And I mean, if anybody can put the team on their back, it's Patrick Mahomes. And this is going to be a tall order against this Baltimore defense. But do you have any sense of optimism that Kansas City can find that dimension in the running game to take a little pressure off of him?
Well, they can. It's a tough defense to run against for sure. I mean, you look at the 4 games, it's like Ravens and Chiefs played 4 times from 18 to 21. And Patrick Mahomes in those 4 games is 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, averaging 370 yards a game through the air. And again, that's with Tyreek Hill back then. But they know him well. That you think about changes that Baltimore has made on defense with Martindale out, with McDonald in. I mean, there's things they've done to specifically try and upgrade their defense from a personnel standpoint, from a coaching standpoint. These are the games that you do that for. This is where you reinforce yourself as the best defense in the NFL by taking care of an offense like this and moving on in the playoffs.
On the flip side of this, I mean, Baltimore had to be highly intrigued watching Josh Allen and the Bills run the ball the way they did in Buffalo the other day. I know the Chiefs got the win, but a very impressive day on the ground from Buffalo. That seems like it would play pretty well to Baltimore's strengths to me. How do you see that? Because this Chiefs run defense can be a liability. You add Lamar Jackson into the mix and what they do running the ball, that seems like it could spell trouble in this matchup.
Absolutely. This is the number 1 run offense in the NFL, 156 yards a game on the ground. You look in the last 5 years, the Chiefs defense, the top two games given up by quarterbacks rushing against them are both Lamar Jackson. It's 107 yards and 80 yards. I think there's one other game, maybe an Easton Stick week 18 kind of mean nothing game is the only other one over 60 yards. So nobody has run against this Chiefs defense better than Lamar Jackson. I think they've changed their offense this year to run him less, to throw more. I was writing something today on big play passing. I mean, you go back 1 year ago, Chiefs are number one in the NFL in pass plays of 20 yards or more. Ravens are second to last in the NFL. One had 40 more than the other. And this year they have the same amount of pass plays, 20 yards or more. The Chiefs have dropped down. The Ravens have moved up, and now they're on equal footing there, which says a lot about them adding to the deep pass game that Baltimore maybe hasn't had in past years.
It's the funny thing to me about this is, yeah, I mean, and Lamar Jackson hasn't been, obviously he's going to run the ball and he's very good at it, but over the course of the season, that it hasn't been his MO the way that you expect, knowing his athleticism. Then he goes for 100 against Houston last week. And I wonder how much Todd Monken, Baltimore offensive coordinator, changes his approach here, because I do think Kansas City's better equipped to deal with the explosive passing game. L'Jarius Sneed, one of the more underrated corners in the NFL. Trent McDuffie, the young nickelback. They have Justin Reed. They've got safeties and DBs that can at least hope to limit that. Whereas, maybe this is a day where Baltimore gets back to the old school, where Lamar Jackson is carrying the ball a little bit more. They are leaning on that a little more often than we're used to.
Yeah, it would go against kind of the curve of what this year has been. I mean, Lamar Jackson's rushing yards per game, lowest since his rookie year, I think. Passing yards, he set career highs for passing yards, for yards per attempt, for completion percentage. He's definitely taken a step up as a passer. You think about the people they added, not only Zay Flowers with a number 1 draft pick, but free agents like Odell Beckham, like Nelson Aguilar, Bateman's still in there. They've done this year without Mark Andrews for 7 games. I think Likely stepped up and played really well in his absence. The idea of having both of them as a really strong 1-2 punch. I think they're the only team in the NFL that had two tight ends that caught 5 touchdowns or more. So now there's a depth to this passing game as well. But yeah, you're right. If it's worked in the past against this defense, I'm not saying 15 design runs, but I think they would do well early in the game to remind Kansas City how dangerous he is in the open field.